Precept upon precepts, and we learn his word. All praise to the Most High Yahweh. We're going to start off with Colossians chapter 3, verse 17, and the topic of today's class is called Vanity Taints a Clean Worship. Vanity taints a clean worship. And this is where our fathers fell, and this is where we fall today. Our people, we fall today by vain things, thinking that we're doing the right thing to worship the Father. All right, so let's go ahead and read Colossians 3 and 17, and welcome again. Most I bless every one of us. Colossians 3 and 17, and whatsoever you do in word or deed, do all by Hashem, Hamshayach, Yahawashi, giving thanks to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, by Him. All praise to the Heavenly Father. So let's go ahead and get into this class. Hope you have your pen and pad so you can take down these scriptures. I normally repeat the scriptures once, twice, 3 times. So brothers and sisters can get it. And we'll open up the class for questions, statements, and comments afterwards. So let's go to Psalms chapter 50, verse 7. Again, the class is called Vanity Taints a Clean Worship. Psalms 50 and verse 7. Psalms 50 and verse 7. It reads, Hear, O my people, and I will speak, O Israel, and I will testify against you. I am the Most High, even the power, thy power. I will not reprove thee for thy sacrifices, or thy burnt offerings, to have been continually before him, or before me. I will take no bullock out of thy house, nor he-goats out of thy folds. For every beast of the forest is mine, and the cattle upon 1,000 hills. I know all the fowls of the mountains, and the wild beasts of the field are mine. If I were hungry, I would not tell you, for the world is mine, and the fullness thereof. Will I eat the flesh of bulls, or drink the blood of goats? Offer unto the Most High thanksgiving, and pay thy vows unto the Most High, and call upon me in the day of trouble. I will deliver thee, and thou shalt glorify me. It's all about glorifying him. He knows everything that we have, too. He knows what we have. He knows what we can give. He knows what we can give. He knows what we need. Okay? He knows what we need. He knows what we can do. Actively, he knows what we could do. So, there's nothing hidden from him. And like he said, verse number 9, this is important when he says, I will take no bullock out of thy house, nor he-goats out of thy folds. When he says he-goats, you have to understand, Israel made a living by having herds, sheep, goats. In order to populate for the next season, you need a he-goat. If you got, because normally, generally speaking, there's always more female goats or more female sheep or bullocks or bulls than there are male goats, male sheep. Okay? So this is why he said, nor he-goats out of thy folds. So if there's only one he-goat left, don't sacrifice that one he-goat. If anything, you go purchase one from the priest, because you need a flock for the next season. Most High, he makes sense with everything. This is during the sacrifice time. But what you have to understand as we read on, you're going to see how wicked Israel was. Instead of spending money or selling 2 she-goats to go buy another male goat for sacrifice, the Most High is going to show you how wicked Israel was. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 1. This is one of the reasons why he had to do away with the sacrifices, because our people had got so tainted in just the farming industry and the herding industry, which we do something, we think the Bible's old school, but the things that we do today still is in reverence to what was going on then. Even if we're computer science or plumbing or nursing, it's all still the same thing. You know, you still got to have a good heart when sacrificing something to the Most High. And it's not necessarily talking about bulls and goats. Isaiah chapter 1, verse 11. Isaiah chapter 1, verse 11. To what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me, saith the Most High? I am full of the burnt offerings of rams. He's tired of them. And the fat of fed beasts. And I delight not in the blood of bullocks, or of lambs, or of he-goats. There it is again. When you come to appear before me, who hath required this at your hand, to tread my courts? Bring no more vain oblations. Incest is an abomination unto me. The new moons, and the Shabbats, and the calling of assemblies I cannot away with. It is iniquity, even the solemn meetings. Your new moons and your appointed feasts, my soul hateth. They are trouble unto me. I am weary to bear them. So some people in today's times who are in the Christian world think that, see, they'll bring this one verse out and try to link it with Colossians, which talks about do not judge a man based on new moons. But this is talking about something totally different. By the context, this is talking about the wickedness of Israel and their sacrifices. Israel's sacrifices had gotten so pitiful that it turned into almost a bragging thing. So the Most High is complaining about how vain Israel had become. They celebrated the feast days as if it was Christmas or Thanksgiving, like these feast days we have here in this Babylonic world. You know how our family members will get together on these holidays and they'll boast. They'll be like, hey, brother, you see how many things I brought to the feast? You see I brought that turkey over there? I brought that lamb over there? That's mine, man. Yeah, I brought that. You know, and so our brothers and sisters would boast over what they had and what they brought to the priest. It's all vain. Them bulls, see those bulls? They're so plump. Pop my collar, brother. Pop my collar for that. I brought all these bulls this year. The Most High ain't, look, Israel started to believe that the more he-goats that they brought, or the more bullocks that they brought, the more favor came to them. It wasn't about that. When you look at what the Most High sent to us, who did he send? Did he send a whole bunch of bullocks or prophets? He sent prophets, but who did he send out of his family? He sent one son. He didn't send a whole bunch of sons. He sent one son to take away the sins from the world, which was Yahawashi. This is what we have to understand. Let me shut this thing off here. Yeah, so you can see where I'm going with this in the vainness of Israel. We have become very vain. Okay? Look at Malachi chapter 1. Malachi. Malachi is the last book of the Old Testament. Malachi chapter 1, and let's read verse 12. Malachi chapter 1, verse 12. And it says, but ye have profaned it, in that ye say, the table of the Most High is polluted, and the fruit thereof, even his meat, is contemptible. Because when we had sacrifices, we sacrificed this meat to the Most High, but there was a rule or a custom that when the meat was sacrificed, you ate the meat. Not just anybody ate the meat. The prophets or the priests actually ate the meat first. It just didn't sit there. The Most High can't eat the flesh that we give to him. It was just a smell that came to him that he enjoy. But it wasn't even that. It was really the hearts of the people that gave it in meekness and sincerity. That was the importance of the whole thing. It was the meekness and sincerity of the people who gave these bulls and these bullocks and the goats. It's all about being genuine. A lot of our people are not genuine, especially when we have money. When you have money, some people aren't genuine at all. They think they could buy everything. So it's not about that. It's about your heart. Okay? Let's look at the Apocrypha, and let's go to Sirach. The Apocrypha, Sirach, chapter 39. And let's read verse 19. It reads, "The works of all flesh are before him." See that? That means he knows what we're doing. He knows how we feel. He knows when we're genuine. He knows when we're fake. The works of all flesh are before him, and nothing can be hid from his eyes. So how do you think he felt about Israel? And he's popping their collar, bringing all these bulls and bullocks. He got tired of it. That's why he says, man, take this stuff away. On the new moons, we're supposed to do sacrifices on the new moons back in the old days. On the feast days, we're supposed to do sacrifices. Even on the Sabbath days, we're supposed to do sacrifices in the olden days. Okay? We don't have to do that stuff no more. Not sacrifice that way. We sacrifice our bodies by being obedient, by doing what he say do. That's the new sacrifice. Let's read down to 21. He seeth from everlasting to everlasting, from the beginning to the end, he seeth. And there is nothing wonderful before him. He's seen it all. What can you do that's more creative than somebody that was before you? He gave you the idea. The only thing that you can show that's different from everybody else is your praise. That's what separates you from everybody else, your obedience. There's nothing you could create that would make the Most High be like, wow, that kid that I created, he's something. No, it's your praise, your worship. That separates you from everybody else. Okay? Verse 21. A man need not to say, what is this? Wherefore is that? For he hath made all things for their uses. Look at that. He hath made all things for their uses. I don't know if some of y'all know who NWA are. I know Brother Yard knows who NWA is. But Ren from NWA said one of the hardest lyrics, I thought, from back in the day. He said, you have to work to get faith. And he was rapping it in a wicked way, but it said that was part of one of his lyrics. You have to work to get faith. And it's so true. You have to work to get faith. You have to work at it. Very true. So hopefully that touched somebody else that was in the streets that heard it. Verse 21. A man need not to say, what is this? Wherefore is that? For he hath made all things for their uses. All things he made. I want to drop down to 25. Look at this. For the good are good things created from the beginning. All right. For the good. Who's good? He said, for the good are good things created from the beginning. So evil things for sinners. Think about that. What's good? Are you good? He said, for the good, good things have been created for you. For the good, good things have been created for you. Whether you see it now or whether they come in the future. But you have to understand that nobody's good on this earth. Not one of us is good. So there's a twist to this. You have to understand what he's saying when he says, for the good are good things created from the beginning. What is that? So evil things for the sinners. Now, if y'all been listening to us for a while, you should know what good is. But we're going to read some scriptures so we can show it to you what the good is. Let's drop down to verse 27 I'm going to read to 35. Let's just read all the way down. Verse 27. Verse 27. All things are for good to the godly. All things are for good to the godly. See that? Nothing can hurt you, but don't get it twisted. Don't think you can eat pork and get away with it, because this good is talking about something we must do, which is keep the law. It says all things are for good to the godly. Okay? Within that good is liberty only when you keep the law. So to the sinners, they are turned into evil. So you wonder why some people be like, man, I did that and I wasn't so lucky. You know, I got sick when I did that. But when you did it, you didn't get sick. If that person is keeping the laws, like you said, all things are for good to the godly. All things. They ain't going to harm you. Verse 28. There be spirits that are created for vengeance, which is their fury lay on sore strokes. In the time of destruction, they pour out their force. Now, y'all was talking about hurricanes and tornadoes. How many people did that affect? How many people actually kept the laws and it didn't affect? Look at us. The Most High got us covered. Wherever we are, not one of you brothers and sisters was involved in them tornadoes or hurricanes. Not one of y'all on this conference call. Not one of you. We're sitting here talking about it. You know? Now we pray for our brothers who may have been through it, but he said that there is a fury that lays sore strokes on them that do not keep his law. In the time of destruction, they pour out their force and appease the wrath of him that made them. You have to understand, if he's sending a wrath, you got to remember what he said above, for the good are good things created from the beginning. All things are for good to the godly. So say you go through the storm. The Most High may bless you in the end of it. All right? Nothing may not happen to you, but you may be blessed, and you may get a new house if you had an old house that fell apart from the insurance company. No hassle, no heckle, no problems whatsoever. Verse 29, fire and hail and famine and death, all these were created for vengeance. Teeth of wild beasts. Now, I sent you some pictures. I sent y'all what do you call that lizard? A Komodo dragon. That's what it is. That doggone Komodo dragon. Oh, my gosh, man. When I saw that Komodo dragon, I watched a video, and a Komodo dragon bit right through a calf, and there was another calf laying there. This thing was the biggest dragon I ever seen in my life, man, Komodo dragon. It had to be at least 5 feet tall, but it literally ate the second baby calf. It literally, while it was living, it just pretty much picked it up from its hind leg and swallowed it whole. Swallowed it whole. I mean, it just put fear in me to see something like that. I thought about this verse when I saw it. The Most High made teeth of wild beasts. And just think, crocodiles and alligators are bigger than the Komodo dragon. Bigger and quicker and stronger. Yeah, you have to think about this when the Most High said he made all things for himself. All things. You have to really think about it. And then you have to pray that you never have to go across something like this, going hiking or walking into the jungle on vacation or anything like that. You could run face-to-face with this thing if you're a sinner. You know what I mean? Look at this other thing that I sent you. It's called inland tapian snake. Inland tapian snake. Y'all see that? Y'all should all have this. I texted conference call this one. But the inland tapian snake, it says, the inland tapian has one of the most lethal venoms. Now, why could something have a venom that deadly? Why? One drop can kill up to 100 adult men. If that ain't potent, who creates something like this? The Most High does. And it works in as little as 45 minutes. Y'all see that? I mean, man tries to create these potions and things like that to kill you, but the Most High naturally have created animals for the sinners. Teeth of wild beasts, scorpions, serpents, and the sword, punishing the wicked to destruction. Over there, you see that over there in Russia going up against Ukraine, just blowing up cities, blowing up power plants. When I was talking to my cousin, he was telling me about the conversations that they have down there on the oil well. He deals with all the admin. He's not just one of these guys doing samples of the oil. He's a bigwig. And he basically was telling me about some of the conversations they was having, and he said if Putin wanted to cease fire, he said the perfect example of him being able to cease fire would be when he blew up the power plant over there in Ukraine. He said that would be the perfect time for him to go in and be like, okay, we're going to cease fire. We're going to go in and we're going to seal up the power plant for the preservation of life. We didn't intend to blow up the power plant, but we accidentally shot it down. That would have almost allowed him to escape from war crimes. That right there in itself. And he would have had an out. But the Most High put the spirit in Putin to keep going. That's the thing. The Most High created 2 and 2. Everybody's thinking one way. Everybody's thinking the same way, but they're not thinking the way of the Most High. The Most High controls everything, even men. Let's go back to verse 31. They shall rejoice in his commandment, and they shall be ready upon earth when need is. And when their time is come, they shall not transgress his word. You can't go against his word. Most I put that spirit in you. You can't stop it. Look at Job 31. Look at Job 31. Job 33. The book of Job, chapter 33, verse 14. Let's start at 13. Job chapter 33, verse 13. Why doest thou strive against him? For he giveth not account of any of his matters. For the Most High speaketh once, yea, twice, yet man perceiveth it not. They don't perceive what Putin is thinking. They don't perceive what's China up to in secret. They're not perceiving any of the allies of Russia, what they're thinking. Verse 15, in a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon men, and slumberings upon their bed, then he openeth up the ears of men, and sealeth their instructions. The Most High will put the instructions in man's mind while he's sleeping at night on what to do the next day. You'd be like, Putin been there for years. All of a sudden he want to go to war? The Most High put those instructions in his brain when it activate. Verse 17, that he may withdraw man from his purpose and hide pride from man. See that? The Most High is the author of destruction. Y'all have to always remember that. That's why we should not be sleeping when this stuff happens. It shouldn't bother us. Let's go back to Sirach chapter 39. Sirach 39 and verse 32. Therefore, from the beginning I was resolved and thought upon these things, and have left them in writing. All the works of the Most High are good. So he's telling you again, everything he's created is good. All the works of the Most High are good. And he will give every needful thing in due season, so that a man cannot say, this is worse than that, for in time they shall all be well approved. We just got to sit back and watch, y'all. Just sit back and watch. And therefore praise ye the Most High with the whole heart and mouth, and bless the name of the Most High. This thing that's going on today got everybody confused. Listen to the media. Nobody's giving them an answer to talk to us about it. They don't have any answers, y'all. None. So what we have to do is just remember what's good. That's all we have to worry about. Psalms chapter 100. Let's go there. Psalms 100 and verse 5. And the thing is, we have to know these things because it triggers over into our feast days. We have to bring the same focus that we have when we're in the world looking at these events. When we go into the feast days, we have to have the same focus. Stay focused. Psalms 100, verse 5. Psalm 100, verse 5. For the Most High is good. His mercy is everlasting. And his truth endureth to all generations. His truth has been here forever. The Bible hasn't went anywhere. You go into the hotel rooms, it's in there. You go into the courtrooms, well, they used to be in there. But yeah, the Bible is everlasting to everlasting, the Most High's word. It ain't going nowhere. It's won all its fights. Nobody has fought against it and won. That's what you have to think about. Why is this Bible still here? They go, well, they're brainwashing us. It's the white man's book. No, man. This is the Most High's book. It's been here from everlasting to everlasting. All nations rule off the Bible, the way that they have their constitution, the way they have their Senate, the way they have their leaders set up, the way they vote people in. That's all based on the Bible. Everything. Romans chapter 7, verse 12. Romans chapter 7, verse 12. Romans chapter 7, verse 12. It reads, wherefore the law is holy, and the commandment holy, and just, and good. So now we know that the Most High is good, and that what the Most High written on stone is good too. The commandment is still good. It's not bad. It's good. Okay. Let's go to James 1 and 17. Just a few precepts. James 1 and 17. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above. Where did the law, statutes, and commandments come from? Did it come from underneath the ocean? Did some man write it? Like Moses? Did Moses write it on stone? Is Moses that strong to carve that on stone? Jonathan was a stonemason, not Moses. Moses didn't have hard hands. The Most High told you that he carved it in there with his finger. Okay? In Exodus. Not Moses' finger. All right. Let's read that again. James 1 and 17. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, and cometh down from the Father of lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. So the Most High brought this thing down from the heavens. Now, some people will be like, well, how did that happen? What came down from the heavens? Okay? So you have to prove all things. So you have to show it in the scriptures what came down from heaven. Let's go to Exodus chapter 19. The book of Exodus chapter 19. We're going to prove that it came down from heaven. Exodus chapter 19, verse 18. Exodus 19 and 18. And Mount Sinai was altogether on a smoke, because the Most High descended upon it in fire, and the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly. See that? Verse 19. And when the voice of the trumpet sounded long and waxed louder and louder, Moses spoke, and the Most High answered him by a voice. What trumpet? The Most High's voice was sounding like a trumpet to the children of Israel down on the ground. Imagine you hearing the trumpet, and you thinking it's Moses, but it's the Most High, and it's getting louder and louder, so loud that no man can blow a horn like that. And the Most High came down upon Mount Sinai, on the top of the mount, and the Most High called Moses up to the top of the mount, and Moses went up. So now you see that the Most High came down, and Moses went up. See that? So who came down from heaven? It was the Most High. Let's take it a little further. Let's go to Exodus chapter 34. Exodus chapter 34, verse 29. And it came to pass when Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tables of testimony in Moses' hand, when he came down from the mount, that Moses was not that the skin of his face shone while he talked with him. So his face was bright. Look, can't no Neutrogena or Noxzema get your face this bright, y'all. All right? This ain't no chemicals going to get your face this bright. He said it was shining. Remember he said that he is the father of lights? He lit Moses' face up. His face was shining like a light. His spirit was coming out of him. And when Aaron and all the children of Israel saw Moses, behold, the skin of his face shone, and they were afraid to come near him. His face was shining like an alien. And Moses called unto them, and Aaron and all the rulers of the congregation returned unto him. And Moses talked with them. And afterward the children of Israel came near, and he gave them in commandment all that the Most High had spoken with him in Mount Sinai. See that? So every gift that comes from heaven is of the Most High. The Most High personally brought this down to give to the children of Israel. This is why we're so important to the world. This is why the Most High is trying to wake us up, but we keep fighting them. We keep saying, no, we like this world. We love this world. But the Most High keep trying to shake us. Like, no, I gave this to you. Let's go to Luke chapter 18. So it's good. This stuff is good. So anybody who says the law's done away with, ain't nobody keeping that, they don't know what good is. They don't know what good is. Luke chapter 18. So us keeping the feast days is good. It's not that we do away with it. The new moons are still good. We don't do away with it. It came from the Most High. We don't do away with that. Luke chapter 18, verse 19. Luke chapter 18, verse 19. And Yahawashi said unto him, why callest thou me good? None is good save one, that is the Most High. So even Yahawashi said he ain't good. He said, I didn't come down from heaven. I was born just like y'all, in the Spirit. The Spirit came down from heaven. That's good. It came upon me. But he's not saying that he's good. He's saying that the Most High is good. See that? Let's go to Psalms chapter 34. Psalms chapter 34. Psalms 34, verse 8. Psalms 34, verse 8. It says, O taste and see that the Most High is good. How do you taste to see that the Most High is good? What do you do when you taste? When you taste something, you have a description in your brain what it tastes like. You can actually communicate to everyone else what it tastes like, what it feels like, how it made you move a certain way, if it was too sweet or if it was sour. It says, oh, taste and see the Most High is good. How do we taste? If you ask a Christian, how do you taste the Most High? What do you think they'll tell you? They'll say something, you have to feel him in your heart. That's not tasting. That's not how you taste. You taste by keeping his commandments. I've never tasted the Most High until I started keeping his laws. That's how I was able to taste. And those who didn't want to taste, they never understood it because they never tasted it. They never knew they weren't supposed to eat pork. They never knew they weren't supposed to eat catfish. Never knew it. So they never tasted the Most High because he told them not to do it. They never taste the feast day because they never kept it. We've all here tasted the feast days because we've kept it. Oh, taste and see that the Most High is good. Blessed is the man that trusteth in him. See that? Let's go to Romans chapter 12 and 2. Romans 12 and 2. The book of Romans chapter 12, verse 2. We'll start at 1. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of the Most High, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice. What's a sacrifice? Is it bulls, goats, and sheep? No, he says you are the living sacrifice. Holy. Why are you holy? Because you're keeping the holy laws. Acceptable unto the Most High, which is your reasonable service, because he gave the laws to us, to the 12 tribes. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's how you taste. That you may prove what is that good, that acceptable and perfect will of the Most High. So our people in the past had tasted, but they had lost the taste by doing wickedness, by sacrificing the wrong way. So the Most High had to remove that from us. Matthew chapter 15, verse 7. It says, you hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying, this people draweth near unto me with their mouth, because our people did it. Once they started keeping the laws, it became tradition. And then they forgot that they're supposed to come with a sincere heart and a forgiving heart. This people draweth near unto me with their mouth and honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. See that? They lost their way. But in vain they do worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. That's what happened to our people. They started following these Sadducees and the Pharisees, started doing all these wicked things. And just like our people today, during false doctrines. Let's look at the precept that we just utilized in the Old Testament. Isaiah chapter 29. Isaiah chapter 29. Because it's spoken twice. Isaiah 29, verse 13. Isaiah 29, verse 13. It says, wherefore the Most High said, for as much as this people draw near me with their mouth and with their lips do honor me. Oh, I love the Lord. I love him so much. Well, how do you love if you never tasted? How do you love him if you never tasted anything that he said do? But have removed their heart far from me, and their fear towards me is taught by the precept of men. See that? What are the precepts of men? You can eat anything, brother. Christ came and died for our sins. You ain't got to keep the law. Christ died for the law. He died. The laws are done away with. You ain't got to keep the feast day, brothers. Sisters, you ain't got to do that no more. You ain't got to worry about your period. You know, you can do whatever you want. You ain't got to wear no scarf over your head, sister, when you pray. Christ died for that. Everything is Christ died for it. But Christ said, he that doeth the will of my Father, to him will I come sup with him. The will is keeping of his laws. Verse 14. Therefore, behold, I will proceed to do a marvelous work amongst this people, even a marvelous work and a wonder. Watch out, when the Most High say a wonder, like he said he would make our plagues beautiful or wonderful, when he says wonder, look out. For the wisdom of their wise men shall perish. They lost the understanding of the law. And the understanding of their prudent men shall be hid, prophets. Woe unto them that seek deep to hide their counsel from the Most High, and the works are in dark. And they say, who seeth us, and who knoweth us? Be careful, y'all. We have to keep these laws. They're not going away. Israel began to worship just like the heathen. So do a lot of us today, because these feast days, like I said, these holidays are treated just like those days of Bacchus. Let's glance at how the heathen worship during the days of our fathers, because the heathens always require a sacrifice too. Okay? Remember, we wanted to be like the heathens. We wanted a king like the heathens. We wanted to sacrifice like the heathens. We didn't have to do all that. The Most High gave that to us because we desire to be just like them. We're going to go into the Apocrypha, and let's look at how the heathen sacrifice. The Apocrypha, let's go to the history. Is it what it's called? The history of, the history of the destruction of Bel and the dragon. Okay? We're going to start at chapter 1, verse 1. The history of the destruction of Bel and the dragon, chapter 1, verse 1. And if you read right underneath the Bel and the dragon, what does it say right there? Anybody read that? Anybody read that out loud for me?
Con, it says, the history of the destruction of Bel and the dragon, cut off from the end of Daniel, chapter 6.
Cut. You have to read everything. That's right. Thank you, brother. You have to read everything. Just most brothers read right over that. It says, cut off from the end of Daniel. All right. So we're going to read the verse 1, and it says, and King Xerxes was gathered to his fathers, and Cyrus of Persia received his kingdom. We were in captivity here. This is in Babylon, which switched over to Persia. Just like Ukraine and Russia going to war. Well, just imagine Syria go and fight Russia right now and take out Russia. Well, Syria would be the new Moscowians. They would be the new Magogians. They would be the new Russians, the Syrians. But this is what happened here, so you can understand. It says, and King Xerxes was gathered to his fathers. He was the king before in Persia. And Cyrus of Persia received his kingdom. Now, King Xerxes, there was 3 Xerxes. One of the Xerxes was married to Queen Esther, so y'all can understand. I think it was the first Xerxes. He was married to Queen Esther. Okay. Let's get a precept real quick, and we'll come right back so you can match this up with the book of Daniel. Let's go to Daniel chapter 6, the historical precept, just so you can match it up. Daniel chapter 6. Let's get to Daniel first. Daniel chapter 6, and let's look at verse 28. Daniel 6 and verse 28. And it reads, so this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian. So the Apocrypha agrees with the 1611 King James Bible. It agrees with it. If you think it's just 66 books, it's more than 66 books. Let's go back to Bel and the dragon. So this king named Cyrus is what this story is about right now with Daniel. And King Xerxes was gathered to his fathers, and Cyrus of Persia received his kingdom. And Daniel conversed with the king and was honored above all his friends. Now the Babylonians had an idol called Bel, and there was spent upon him every day Listen to this. 12 great measures of fine flour, and 40 sheep, and 6 vessels of wine. Y'all hear that? Every day, this king had his city or his kingdom for this particular idol in his castle. 40 sheep and 6 vessels of wine every day. Burger King can't produce that many hamburgers in a day. Look at that. 40 sheep. And the king worshipped it and went daily to adore it. See that? Daily. Crazy. Basically, I wanted you to see this because this is a witness to the book of Daniel, what Daniel was going through. Daniel had to go through this stuff. This is why he was always praying. But he was praying so the Most High would free Israel. But it reads, verse 4 again, and the king worshipped it and went daily to adore it. But Daniel worshipped his own God. And the king said unto him, why doest not thou worship Baal? Who answered and said, because I may not worship idols made with hands, but the living power, who hath created the heaven and the earth, and sovereignty over all flesh. Then said the king unto him, thinkest thou not that Baal is a living God? Seest thou not how much he eateth and drinketh every day? Now, this is something the king did every day. Now, we have these little puny old week holidays that come every other month, and all of our people succumb to these holidays. They succumb to it. They go along with the flow. They go with it. But here you got Daniel seeing this king do all these sacrifices every day, didn't succumb, didn't even partake in the food. See that? Didn't even partake in it. Look at 1 Corinthians chapter 10. Didn't partake even in the sweet-smelling steaks that was cooking. Prime rib. Didn't even partake in it. The lamb. He passed it up and prayed to the Father. That's some willpower, if you ask me. I bet you if the Christmas falls on the same day as our Hanukkah this year, I guarantee you're going to have some brothers eating Christmas food and Hanukkah food. I guarantee you. Somewhere in America. 1 Corinthians chapter 10. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 17. For we being many are one bread and one body, for we are all partakers of that one bread. Behold, Israel after the flesh, are not they which eat of the sacrifices, partakers of the altar? So we just read in Bel and the Dragon that Cyrus wanted Daniel to be a partaker in his sacrifice, eating at his altar. Verse 19 of 1 Corinthians chapter 10. What say I then, that the idol is anything? Or that which is offered and sacrificed to idols is anything? But I say that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils, and not to the Most High. And I would not that you should have fellowship with devils. But did Daniel still have fellowship with the king? Of course he did. He worked with the king. But what did he mean? When you sit down at someone's table to eat with them, you fellowship while you're eating. I mean, when you have a meeting at work, where do everybody want to go for lunch? The bosses might say, hey, Phil, hey, Frank, why don't you come eat with me, and we could discuss this over lunch. And it helps you make a decision. This is what the Most High is saying. It's not that you can't be friends or have communication with these people. It's that he doesn't want us to be partakers with them when it comes to their feast days. You see that? Eating and things like that. Now, Daniel was in the midst of all of this. He didn't communicate with them, but while they were eating at the altar table, but he did talk to them. You got to really look at this, okay? 1 Corinthians chapter 10. Let's read to 22. Verse 21. Ye cannot drink the cup of the Most High and the cup of devils. You cannot be partakers of the Most High's table and of the table of devils. Do we provoke the Most High to jealousy? Are we stronger than he? No, absolutely not. Let's go back to Bel and the Dragon. Bel and the Dragon. Let's read chapter 1, verse 6. Then said the king unto him, Thinkest thou not that Bel is a living God? Seest thou not how much he eateth and drinketh every day? All right, for lack of time, let's jump over to verse 13. Remember, Daniel and the king were friends. Verse 13. And they, let's read, let's see where I want to start. Let's start at verse 11. Verse 11. So Bel's priest said, Lo, we go out, but thou, O king, set on the meat and make ready the wine and shut the door fast and seal it with thine own signet. So why? So nobody else can go in there and eat the dragon's food. Because this is something they did. And you see this in these restaurants with these little Buddhas and things like that. They put a little food on the Buddha's lap. Little oranges and apples and that. They still believe in these doggone idols today. You go in some of these Indian restaurants, they do it too. Right when you come in, you can't avoid it. It's sitting right there looking at you.
I'm telling y'all, Israel, stay out of them places.
Verse 12. And tomorrow when thou comest in, if thou findest not that Bel hath eaten up all, we will suffer death, or else Daniel that speaketh falsely against us. And they little regarded, for under the table they have made a privy interest, whereby they entered in continually and consumed those things. These are the priests. Remember I said in Israel the priests eat first. But in these heathen nations, so does the priest in their company. They eat first. So when they were gone forth, the king set meals before Bel. Now Daniel had commanded his servants to bring ashes, and those that strewed throughout all the temple in the presence of the king alone. Then went they out and shut the door and sealed it with the king's signet, and so departed. It took ashes and threw it on the floor. So they could see these priests sneaking into the temple to eat this food. Okay? Now the night came the priests with their wives and children, as they wanted to do, and did eat and drink up all. What did they have to eat again? 40 sheep, flour with meal. It was eating good. Wine. They all took place in this. Verse 15. Verse 16. In the morning, betimes the king arose, and Daniel with him. And the king said, Daniel, are the seals whole? And he said, Yea, O king, they be whole. And as soon as he had opened the door, the king looked upon the table and cried with a loud voice, Great art thou, O Bel, and with thee is no deceit at all. Then laughed Daniel and held the king that he should not go in, and said, Behold, now the pavement, and mark well whose footsteps are these. And the king said, I see the footsteps of men, women, and children. And then the king was angry. He was made a laughingstock. And took the priests with their wives and children, who showed him the privy doors where they came in, and consumed such things as were upon the table. Therefore the king slew them and delivered Bel into Daniel's power, who destroyed him and his temple. So if the king was mad about his priests and family sneaking in with a deceitful, basically they had a deceitful mind to eat the sacrifices, then in similitude, how would the Most High feel if the brothers and sisters came in deceitfully to be a partaker in his food? Okay? With an envious heart, with hatred on their hearts. You know? How would he feel if brothers and sisters entered into their supper to partake in his wine and meat offering sacrifice?
This is one of the reasons why he had to do away with the knowledge of the priests, because they were corrupting the feast days.
Interesting. You know, Cyrus, the king of Persia, when you look at his priests, they weren't dealing truthfully with this king the whole time. They weren't dealing truthfully with the sacrifices. And it's just, like I said, it's the same thing with our people. So basically, we are still, when you look at this whole event, and you look at how the Most High told us that we couldn't sacrifice nothing, and now we use Yahawashi for our sacrifice, it's almost as if we're still on punishment, and we are still on punishment. This is why we are all partaking in the curses today, based on these sacrifices. We cannot be a part of the sacrifices as far as eating. All we could do is worship from afar. Through Yahawashi Hamshayach, he's trying to get us in order so we can be ready to participate in eating the sacrifice. But right now, we are not ready to partake in eating the sacrifices of the Most High. We are just eating the sacrifice through Yahawashi. He wants us to get our minds in order first. He don't want us to be a vain people like our forefathers. He wants us to be on point. Let's go to 1 Kings chapter 18. First Kings chapter 18 and verse 21. 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 21. And Elijah came unto all the people and said, how long halt ye be between two opinions? If the Most High be of the power, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him. And the people answered him not a word. So our people, because you got to realize, if you look at verse 20, this is all Israel that came up. Let's look at verse 20. And so Ahab sent unto all the children of Israel and gathered the prophets together unto Mount Carmel. And then you had the prophets of Baal, which could have verily been Israelites too. That's why I said, why are you guys all in between two opinions? Verse 22. Then said Elijah unto the people, even I, only remain a prophet of the Most High, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. That's how many prophets they had. Let them therefore give us 2 bullocks, and let them choose 1 bullock for themselves, and cut in pieces and lay it on wood, and put no fire under. And I will dress the other bullock and lay it on wood, and put no fire under. And call ye on the name of your gods, and I will call on the name of the Most High. And the Most High that answereth by fire, and the power that answereth by fire, let him be the power. And all the people answered and said, it is well spoken. And Elijah said unto the prophets of Baal, choose you 1 bullock for yourselves, and dress it first, for ye are many, and call on the name of your powers, but put no fire under. You have to realize this is where John 3:16 comes in. What does John 3:16 say? When they chose 2 bullocks, 1 for each, now you got 400 and something prophets of Baal, and then you just have Elijah. You have to realize, you have to read in between the lines, sometimes using precepts. And it's a similitude of the Most High taking one sacrifice for all of Israel. Israel always knew the Most High used 1 sacrifice for all Israel. John 3:16, y'all should know this by heart. For the Most High so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. For the Most High sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. All right, so when you look at 1 Kings chapter 18, and Elijah used 1 bullock, he made the instructions for this battle. He said, we'll get 2 bullocks, you choose 1 and I choose 1. Okay? 1 bullock is going to save Israel. And they took the bullock which was given them, and they dressed it and called on the name of Baal from morning, evening unto noon, said, O Baal, hear us. But there was no voice, nor any that answered. And they leapt upon the altar which was made. And it came to pass at noon that Elijah mocked them and said, cry aloud, for he is a God. Either he is talking, or maybe he is pursuing, or maybe he's on a journey, on vacation. Or perhaps he might even be sleeping. and must be awakened. And they cried loud and cut themselves after their manner with knives and lancers till the blood gushed out upon them. Pretty serious. And it came to pass when midday was past, and they prophesied unto the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, that there was neither voice, nor any to answer, nor any that regarded. So these prophets of Baal were very serious. And just like King Cyrus, they worship this thing every day, diligently, 3 times a day. Verse 30, and Elijah said unto all the people, come near unto me. And all the people came near unto him. Who was the people? The people there was Israel. And he repaired the altar of the Most High that was broken down. The altar again. And Elijah took 12 stones, according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, unto whom the word of the Most High came, saying, Israel shall be thy name. Those stones are also symbols of Israel, 12 tribes of Israel. And with the stones he built an altar in the name of the Most High. And he made a trench about the altar as great as would contain 2 measures of seed. And he put the wood in order and cut the bullock in pieces and laid him on the wood. I'm going to read this whole thing, not the entirety, but most of it. And said, fill 4 barrels with water and pour it on the burnt sacrifice and on the wood. And he said, do it the second time. And they did it a second time. And he said, do it the third time. And they did it the third time. This is all symbolism. The Most High deals in 3s, right? Remember, in the book of John, he says the blood, the water, and what else? The Spirit, right? Blood, the water, and the Spirit. And the water ran around about the altar, and he filled the trench also with water. Now, why did he drench it 3 times with water? I thought you needed blood to do a good sacrifice. Drenched it with water, y'all. And it came to pass at the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice that Elijah the prophet came near and said, O my power of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known this day that thou art the power in Israel, and that I am the servant, and that I have done all these things at thy word. What word? Look at Leviticus chapter 6 and 30. Leviticus chapter 6 and 30. Leviticus chapter 6 and 30. And no sin offering whereof any of the blood is brought into the tabernacle of the congregation to reconcile with all in the holy place shall be eaten. It shall be burnt in the fire. Was Elijah making a reconciliation for the children of Israel by having 1 bullock? He's trying to convince them to follow the Most High, correct? By winning this battle. Verse 37. Hear me, O power, hear me, that this people may know that thou art the power, and that thou hast turned their heart back again. See that? There it is. He's trying to win over the people. Then the fire of the Most High fell and consumed the burnt sacrifice and the wood and the stones and the dust and licked up the water that was in the trench. And when all the people saw it, they fell on their faces, and they said, the Most High, he is the power. The Most High, he is the power. And Elijah said unto them, take the prophets of Baal, let not one of them escape. And they took them, and Elijah brought them down to the brook Kishon, and slew them there. And Elijah said unto Ahab, get thee up, eat and drink, for there is a sound of abundance of rain. I'll stop right there with that verse, because that whole chapter of what he did was symbolism. And all the symbolism of the New Testament and the Old Testament. He was basically doing this. It's kind of like Michael Jordan, somebody guarding Michael Jordan. He's seeing right through them. Elijah was seeing right through them prophets. He was doing it strictly for Israel. He was doing it for Israel and the Most High. Right? It wasn't a vain sacrifice. He did it with his heart involved. We're about to close out, but I want to bring out 3 more scriptures. Let's go to Judges chapter 5. Judges chapter 5. Verse 11. Judges chapter 5, verse 11. Judges chapter 5, verse 11. It reads, "They that are delivered from the noise of archers in the places of drawing waters." Drawing waters are religions. When you hear water, that's a symbolism for religion. If it's not the spirit, when it says drawing waters, wine is also used, lies in religion too. It's just, you have to put it in the right context when you're reading. In this particular case, it's talking about various philosophies, drawing waters. There shall they rehearse the righteous acts of the Most High, even the righteous acts towards the inhabitants of his villages in Israel. Then shall the people of the Most High go down to the gates. The gates are the leaders. We have to rehearse this law. Whenever Israel walks away from the Most High, we have to rehearse the laws. If you read this whole chapter, most brothers just read verse 11. But if you read this whole chapter, it's talking about the Most High raised up Deborah and Barak and to free us out of Edom. If you read verse 4, Mount Seir. You know, to free us from our enemies. But it's talking about how Israel is going to rejoice and come back to the Most High. So in this time in Shamgar, our people, they gave in to the heathens. They gave in to the false gods. They gave in to the holidays until Deborah and Barak stood up to lead the people through they utilized our governors to go back to Israel to study our law and come back to our heritage. So this whole chapter is pretty good. You got to read the whole thing and have understanding of what you're reading about. But this is Israel going back to the land. Okay, let's go to Hebrews chapter 10. Hebrews chapter 10. I just want to bring this out real quick. Vanity is everything. What Solomon spoke about in Ecclesiastes, all is vanity. We have to do things in sincerity. We have to love the Most High with all our heart. We have to follow his ways. We have to be steadfast in his laws, almost stubborn to a certain degree in his laws, you know, because we can't be shaken. We have to do what he say do, basically. You know, it's to the doers of the law, not the hearers of the law. The hearers and doers of the law. Let me correct myself. The hearers and doers of the law. Chapter 10 of Hebrews, let's start at verse 1. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 1. This whole chapter is talking about Yahawashi being that bullock. Yahawashi being that sacrifice for our sins. Yahawashi being the way to get back to the Father. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 1. For the law having a shadow of good things to come, and not the very image of the things, can never with those sacrifices, which they offer year by year continually, make the comers thereunto perfect. So he's telling you right there, the sacrifices are not going to save us right now. But he does say the law is a shadow of good things to come, not bad things. Remember, the law is good. Okay? The law is the shadow. We're trying to do it now. Verse 2, for then would they not have ceased to be offered, because that the worshippers, once purged, should have had no more conscience of sins. But in those sacrifices there is a remembrance again made of sins every year. For it is not possible that the blood of bulls and of goats should take away sins. All right? Wherefore, when he cometh in the world, he saith, sacrifice and offering thou wouldest not, but a body hast thou prepared me. In burnt offerings and sacrifices for sin thou hast had no pleasure. Then said I, lo, I come. In the volume of the book it is written of me to do thy will, O Apostle. He's telling you right there, we are still supposed to still do the will of the Father, because Yahawashi did the will of the Father, which is keeping his laws. But the sacrifices, he came to do that. He came to fulfill that sacrificial law. And this is where the Christians say, well, the law is done away with. You just read this chapter, and the law is done away with. No, that's not right. Let's keep reading. But verse 8, above when he said, sacrifice and offering and burnt offerings and offerings for sin thou wouldest not, neither hadst pleasure therein, which are offered by the law. Who offered these sacrifices? What did the Most High say about the priest in one of the precepts that we brought out? He said that he would do something wonderful, that he would take the knowledge of the Most High of sacrifices and offerings from the priests. So he took that away. That was the wonder that he was speaking of. And he did it through Yahawashi, because he came through the word of the Most High. Then, verse 9, then said he, lo, I come to do thy will. He taketh away the first, that he may establish the second, by the which we are sanctified, through the offering of the body of Yahawashi Hamshayach once for all, just like Elijah did. Elijah used one bullock to bring Israel back to the fold. By the which we are sanctified through the offering of the body of Yahawashi Hamshayach once for all. And every priest standeth daily ministering and offering oftentimes the same sacrifices which can never take away sins. But this man, after he had offered one sacrifice for sins forever, sat down on the right hand of the Most High. From henceforth, expecting till his enemies be made his footstool. So he's still waiting on the downfall of the Gentiles to raise up Israel, which is in the book of Revelation. For by one offering he hath perfected forever them that are sanctified. Who are sanctified? Those who believe in the Father, those who are sincerely praying to him. Wherefore the Holy Spirit also is a witness to us. For after that he hath said before, this is the covenant that I will make with them after those days. Saith the Most High, I will put my laws into their hearts, and into their minds will I write them. All right, so what are y'all doing now? Keeping the laws to a certain degree. You're trying to do what's right. He's writing them on our hearts. We are freely doing it. Now we're remission, and their sins and iniquities will I remember no more. Now we're remission of these is, there is no more offering for sin. And therefore, brethren, boldness to enter the holiest by the blood of Hamshayach, by a new and living way which he hath consecrated for us, through the veil, that is to say, his flesh, and having a high priest over the house of the Most High. Let us draw near with a true heart and full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled from an evil conscience, and our bodies washed with pure water. There is that water. And that conscience, what we just saw in Elijah, the book of Kings. Let us hold fast the profession of our faith without wavering. Don't be within two opinions. Believe. It says, for he is faithful that promised. And let us consider one another to provoke unto love and to good works, not forsaking the assembly of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more, as ye say, see the day approaching. For if we sin willfully, after that we have received the knowledge of the truth, there remaineth no more sacrifices for sins. See that? But a certain fearful looking for a judgment and fiery indignation which shall devour the adversaries. What happened with the Baal prophets? They got slaughtered. That was their judgment. We don't want to be just like them. We want to have a clear conscience when coming into these feast days. So how do we worship the Most High? We worship him in praise and in thankfulness.
This is the word of the Lord of hosts. I took you from the pastures and from following the sheep to be prince over my people Israel. I have been with you wherever you have gone, and have destroyed all the enemies in your path. I will make make you a great name among the great ones of the earth. I will assign a place for my people in Israel. There I will plant them, and they shall dwell in their own land.